cultural diffusion and traditional Korean culture.
Welcome to Introduction to Korean Studies and Major Topics. And this week we're going to look at traditional Korean culture. So going from the ancient period all the way up to the Joseon Dynasty, which spans many, many hundreds of years. But one of the main objectives to think about in this particular class is to think about how cultural influences have adapted to the local context. And by this, I mean that culture is constantly evolving. So what we think of as Korean culture today is different from what it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and it will continue to change and will be something different 50 years from now or 100 years from now. And we'll see how this process takes place as we go through this lecture. So starting with the ancient period, we'll see how there were different cultural influences coming in and leaving Korea, and how this adapted to the local context. We are also going to explore what cultural diffusion is. And cultural diffusion is this concept that cultural influences will either arrive or leave, and they will blend in with the local culture, and they will take on a different form or a mixed form to create something that is different or new and unique. We will also look at the evolution of Korean culture in comparison with the surrounding region. So because cultural influences were constantly flowing in and out of Korea from China, from Japan, from Northeast Asia, we will see also how this process worked and how the cultural influences took shape in the greater region.
Introduction. Three Kingdoms period. Unified Shilla and Bade. Goryeo. Joseon. Conclusion. Introduction.
So first let's examine the introduction of different cultural influences, the process of cultural diffusion, and look at the process of how culture constantly evolves in the very early period.
How do you define culture?
By looking at this process of cultural diffusion, there are different components that we first must examine. So the first is we are looking at Korean culture specifically, but the question is, what exactly does this mean? And culture is something that's very difficult to define. So we are going to look at what is happening on the peninsula and in the northeastern regions, and look at how these different cultures and influences travel. As they travel, they will be introduced to new regions and then will start to take on their own characteristics within the local culture and change and adapt. And we will see that as these different cultures or influences travel, there are inbound influences from neighbors, and there are also outbound influences, meaning that Korea is also in turn influencing its neighbors and the surrounding region. And this is what we call the process of cultural diffusion.
These are the keywords for this class: culture, cultural influence, cultural diffusion,